I never imagined I'd end up working the night shift at a Kroger store. Life has a way of kicking you when you're already on the ground. After losing my warehouse job and watching the bills pile up like a slow motion avalanche, I took what I could get. That happened to be a position at a Kroger on the edge of a small Texas town called Delhurst, a quiet, half-forgotten place that felt like time had skipped over it. The hiring process was unusually fast. A woman named Marla interviewed me in a back office that smelled like lemon cleaner and something faintly metallic. She didn't ask about my resume or experience. She just stared at me with sharp green eyes and asked one question that stuck with me. "Are you good at following rules?" I gave a lazy nod, trying to sound confident. "Sure." "You'll have to be," she said. "This store runs differently than most." She wasn't kidding. I should have asked more questions, but desperation makes you blind to the strange things people say. That night, I met the other employees who worked the graveyard shift. George was the dairy guy. Friendly enough, always chewing gum and humming old rock songs. Melanie handled cleaning and janitorial stuff. She kept to herself and walked like she was always listening for something behind her. Then there was Craig, the security guard. Huge guy. Didn't talk much. Just watched. You'd feel his eyes on you before you even saw him. After introductions, Marla handed me a laminated card. It was thick, like it had been reinforced to survive a hurricane. "Read this. Memorize it. Don't test the limits." I looked down at the card and read the rules. There were 8 of them. Clock in before 10 p.m. sharp. Not a minute later. Never go near the freezer between 1:12 a.m. and 1:23 a.m. Even if you hear knocking, especially if you hear knocking. If you see an employee in a blue apron with no name tag, do not speak to them. Report it to Craig immediately. The intercom will make announcements between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. No matter what it says, do not follow instructions unless Craig gives you a thumbs up. If you hear footsteps in aisle 9, leave quietly. Never run. Every night at 4:44 a.m., a customer may enter the store. Do not acknowledge them. Do not speak to them. Do not make eye contact. If any product has a price of 6.66 cents, remove it and burn it in the loading dock incinerator. If the power goes out and your watch shows a different date when it returns, clock out and leave. Don't speak to anyone. Just go. At first, I thought it was some kind of elaborate joke or a weird company tradition. But Marla's expression didn't waver. No smile, no wink, just a cold, matter-of-fact tone that made the air around her feel heavier. "These rules are not optional," she said. "Break one, and you'll learn why no one stays here long." I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded and tucked the card into my back pocket. That first night went by slowly. The store was quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that hums in your ears and makes you feel like you're never really alone. I busied myself with shelf stocking and breaking down cardboard in the back. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and every now and then, the air conditioning would groan like something old waking up in the walls. I passed by Jorge a few times. He was whistling Hotel California as he restocked yogurt. It helped somehow. Made the place feel a little more normal. Melanie avoided aisle 9 like it had a disease, and Craig stood near the front doors, arms crossed, eyes scanning the store like a sentry guarding something ancient. By 12:30, I'd started to relax a little. It was just a night shift after all. Weird rules or not, it was still a grocery store. Nothing terrifying about cereal boxes and frozen vegetables. But then it hit 1:12 a.m. I was near the meat section, pushing a cart of canned goods, when I heard it. A soft knock. Then another. 3 knocks total, coming from the glass walk-in freezer doors. I stopped. The temperature around me seemed to drop a few degrees. My breath puffed out in front of me, barely visible in the store's cold lighting. The knocking came again. Steady. Patient. Like someone inside was trying not to scare me. I glanced at my watch. It was 1:14 a.m. My heart jumped into my throat. I remembered the rule. Don't go near the freezer between 1:12 and 1:23. Even if you hear knocking. I backed away, slow and quiet. Every step away from that door felt like a mile. My eyes stayed locked on the freezer glass, half expecting something to burst through it. I didn't see anything at first. But just before I turned the corner, I noticed movement behind the fogged glass. A pale shape, tall, thin, unmoving, watching me, I didn't sleep that morning when I got home. The next night, I tried to write it off as sleep deprivation. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe it was just pipes knocking or some kind of animal outside. I told myself that, but it didn't feel true. Around 2:25 a.m., I was facing shelves in aisle 7, rearranging cereal boxes, when I noticed someone standing at the far end of the aisle. A man in a blue Kroger apron. At first, I almost called out. I thought maybe it was Jorge. But as I stepped closer, I saw that something was wrong. He wasn't moving. He was just standing there, stock still, with his head tilted to one side like he was listening. And he didn't have a name tag. I froze in place. Another rule. If you see someone in a blue apron with no name tag, don't speak to them. Report it to Craig immediately. I turned around and walked away, trying not to let my footsteps echo. My palms were sweating by the time I found Craig in the back near the loading dock. He was sipping from a large thermos and watching the security screens. "There's a guy in aisle 7, I said. "No name tag." Craig put down his thermos, picked up his flashlight, and started walking without saying a word. I followed for a moment. "What happens if someone talks to them?" I asked. Craig didn't stop walking, but he muttered something low under his breath. "They don't come back the same. If they come back at all." That answer haunted me for the rest of the shift. Later that night at exactly 2:57 a.m., the intercom crackled to life overhead. "Attention all employees," the voice said, cold and distant. "There is a spill in aisle 9. Please clean it immediately." I stiffened. Aisle 9. I had just been near there. There was no spill, no mess. I looked around. Craig was standing nearby, arms folded. He didn't react. No thumbs up, no gesture, nothing. So I stayed where I was, near the front counter, pretending to clean the register area until the clock hit 3. I asked Melanie about it the next morning in the break room. Her hands were shaking as she stirred her coffee. She didn't meet my eyes. "They use the intercom to lure you in," she whispered. "If you go when they call, you're already lost." She didn't say anything more. That same night, Jorge didn't show up. Marla said he quit. Craig told me he broke the freezer rule. He only went close to the door for a second. That's all it took. I'm not sure what scared me more, the fact that something might have taken him, or the fact that no one in the store seemed surprised, like it was just part of the job. Melanie started humming to herself every night around 4:30. I asked her why. She said it helped block out the voice. I didn't ask what voice she meant. As for me, I began to feel something change. It was like the store was sinking into me. The silence became thicker. The rules started feeling less like suggestions and more like sacred laws carved into invisible stone. Something is waiting here, watching, testing us, and I think it's getting closer. They say you get used to strange things if you see them enough. I'm not sure that's true. I think you just get better at pretending it's normal. By the time my third night rolled around at the Kroger store in Delhurst, the rules weren't just guidelines. They were gospel. I repeated them in my head constantly, like a prayer that might keep me alive. The freezer knock, the man with no name tag, the cursed announcements, and the one that hadn't happened yet, but hovered in the back of my mind like a storm waiting to break. The one about the customer. The rule had been simple. Every night at 4:44 a.m., a customer may enter the store. Do not acknowledge them. Do not speak to them. Do not make eye contact. I hadn't seen this so-called customer yet, and part of me hoped it was just an exaggeration. Maybe an old ghost story passed around to scare new hires. But nothing about this store felt like fiction. Everything was real, uncomfortably real. That night, I kept busy restocking canned goods in aisle 4. The clock above the pharmacy ticked along slowly, each second dragging with it the weight of unseen things. Melanie was mopping floors and humming something under her breath, a broken lullaby in a minor key. Craig stood near the front doors as always, still and quiet like a statue. The minutes passed like syrup. At 4:30, I started to feel it again, that shift in the air. It always happened around the same time. The temperature didn't change, but something else did. It felt like the store tilted slightly, as if gravity leaned in a new direction. The lights didn't flicker, but they seemed dimmer somehow, like a shadow had passed over the building without actually entering it. I looked at my watch. 4:43 a.m. Melanie's humming got louder. She was nowhere near me, but I could still hear it, echoing faintly over the shelves. Craig's hand moved toward his belt and hovered near the flashlight clipped to his hip. I stopped what I was doing, placed the last can of corn on the shelf, and waited. The automatic doors opened with a soft chime. I was standing too far back to see clearly, but I heard the soft shuffle of footsteps. 1, 2, 3, slow and deliberate. Then silence. I ducked behind the shelf, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I didn't want to see. I didn't want to know. But curiosity is a cruel thing. I peeked through the shelves, just barely. Between cans of beans and soup, I saw something move past aisle 2. It was a figure. Not tall, not short, no distinct features. Their movements were unnatural, like their limbs weren't connected the right way. Each step came with a small, rubbery sound like feet slapping against tile. No cart, no basket, just wandering. I remembered the rule. Don't acknowledge them, don't speak to them, don't look them in the eye. So I ducked back down and stayed put, holding my breath. The footsteps stopped. For a long time there was no sound at all. Then something whispered. It came from the other side of the shelf, no more than a few feet away. A soft, papery voice. Can you help me find? I didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't blink. The voice came again. Still calm, still soft. I just need a little help, just for a second. Please. It wasn't a question, it was bait. I felt the air around me thicken, like the store was holding its breath. The figure didn't move, didn't leave. Then finally, after what felt like a lifetime, I heard the footsteps again. Walking slowly toward the back of the store, the automatic doors hissed open once more, and then silence. I waited 5 more minutes before I stood up. Craig was already walking over, his expression hard to read. He didn't say anything, just gave me a slow nod like I'd passed some kind of test. Melanie didn't say a word either. She stopped humming, though, and poured bleach into her mop bucket without looking up. After that night, I understood the rules were not just for safety. They were for survival. Later that week, during my shift, I found a slip of paper shoved into the break room microwave. It was folded 4 times, greasy at the edges, no name on it, just 3 words written in shaky pencil. Don't trust Craig. I read it twice, looked around, no one in sight. I left the note where I found it and went back to work, but the words stuck with me like a splinter under the skin. That morning after my shift ended, I walked out into the warm Texas dawn, blinking against the sun. The town was still asleep. Birds chirped like nothing had happened, like the world was still sane. But I knew better. The next few nights were quiet, at least on the surface. The freezer didn't knock again. No blue-apron stranger showed up. The intercom was silent. But the tension didn't go away. It just settled deeper, like a knot pulling tighter with each passing hour. I started dreaming about the store when I wasn't even there. Nightmares filled with flickering aisles, red-eyed customers, and endless pages of rules written in blood. I'd wake up gasping, heart racing, and still taste the cold air from the freezer on my tongue. Then, on the 6th night, everything changed. I was restocking shelves near the bakery section when the store lights flickered once, just a quick blink, barely noticeable. But when I checked my watch, my stomach dropped. It read 3:09 a.m., but the date had changed. It said tomorrow. I looked up. The store was the same, but somehow different. The music had stopped. The overhead fans weren't spinning anymore, and the silence had teeth. I turned to leave, remembering the rule. If the power flickers and your watch shows a different date, clock out and leave. Don't wait. Don't speak. Just go. But before I could even take a step, Craig appeared at the end of the aisle. He wasn't walking. He was just there, standing. His uniform looked the same, but his eyes didn't. They were too wide, too still. I turned and ran. I didn't care about the rules. I didn't care about being quiet. I just ran. As I passed the freezer aisle, the knocking started again, wild this time, violent, like fists slamming against steel. I ran past it, ran straight for the clock-out terminal, slapped my badge against it. It beeped red. Access denied. The store lights flickered again, and Craig's voice echoed over the intercom. Attention all employees, he said slowly, calmly, like a parent calling a child home. The customer is still inside. Please do not leave until they are satisfied. I backed away from the terminal, shaking. Then I saw Melanie down the hall. She looked terrified. Her mouth was open, but no sound came out. She pointed toward the loading dock. I ran. I didn't look back. The emergency door slammed behind me as I burst into the humid Texas air. My watch still said tomorrow. My legs didn't stop moving until I reached the edge of the parking lot. When I finally turned around, the store looked normal again. Silent, still, lit like any other grocery store at 5 in the morning. But something inside had changed, and I knew it wasn't over, not even close. I stayed home the next night. I didn't call, didn't text. I just stayed curled on my couch, staring at the wall like it might open up and whisper Kroger's rules back at me. My phone buzzed around 9:30 p.m., unknown number. I let it ring. Then again at 9:58. That time, it stopped on the fourth ring, like whoever it was knew I was holding my breath on the other end. At exactly 10 p.m., the landline rang. I didn't even remember having a landline. I unplugged it. Still, I couldn't sleep. By morning, I told myself I'd never go back. That job wasn't worth it. Whatever they were paying me didn't matter. You can't cash a paycheck from the other side. But around noon, someone knocked on my door. I peeked through the curtain. It was Craig. He looked the same. Uniform pressed, sunglasses hiding his eyes. But something about the way he stood, arms behind his back, chin slightly down, told me this wasn't just a social call. He didn't say a word, just held up a small envelope and slid it under my door. When he walked away, I waited a long time before picking it up. Inside was a single slip of paper. One more missed shift and they'll come to you. No name, no threat, just a plain statement that felt colder than any freezer I'd ever stood near. So the next night I returned. The store looked the same, but the feeling was different. Tighter, heavier, like the walls were listening now. Marla wasn't there. Neither was Jorge. Melanie greeted me with a quick nod, but there was something haunted in her face, more than usual. Craig stood by the front doors, chewing something slowly, like he had all the time in the world. His sunglasses were off for once. I didn't want to look into his eyes, but I did. They were wrong. Not monstrous or bloody, just hollow, like he'd been emptied out and something else had filled the space. The night passed mostly without incident until just past 1 a.m. I was in the stockroom, breaking down boxes, when I heard a scratching sound. It started faint, almost like mice behind the walls. But it grew louder, more deliberate. Then came the whispering. It wasn't in English, not Spanish either. It was a sound language, wet syllables whispered by dry mouths, muttering just beyond comprehension. It slithered through the gaps in the walls like water seeping under a locked door. I backed away from the storage shelves and turned off my box cutter. The whispering paused. Then came a thud. Hard, heavy, from inside the wall directly in front of me. The lights flickered once. My breath fogged up. And then I saw the panel shift. The wall itself breathed. Something behind it pushed outward, slow and stretching, like a huge body pressing against plastic wrap. I saw the outline of a hand, long fingers, not human. The tips dragged downward, leaving a ripple in the drywall before vanishing. I didn't scream. I wanted to, but I didn't. I just turned and walked out, fast but quiet. Back to the front of the store. Melanie saw me, and her eyes widened. "You heard it, didn't you?" I didn't answer. She nodded like that was answer enough. "They call it the deep thing," she said softly. "It lives behind the walls, has for years." I swallowed hard. "Why doesn't it break through?" She shook her head. "Because we follow the rules. Because it likes the game. It likes watching us pretend it's normal." I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. At 2:11 a.m., the intercom crackled again. "Employee orientation in break room B," the voice said. "All new hires, please report immediately." I looked at Melanie. "There is no break room B," she whispered. I stayed frozen in place. Then I saw someone walk across the far end of the store. A teenager, maybe 20. He was wearing a Kroger polo. New face. He must have started after I skipped my shift. I called out, too late. He turned the corner toward the back hallway, walking toward a room that didn't exist. Melanie clenched her fists, tears in her eyes. "Craig should have stopped him," she whispered. But Craig didn't move. He just stood near the doors, chewing slowly, eyes fixed on nothing. The minutes dragged on. I kept glancing toward the hallway, hoping, praying, but the kid didn't return. At 2:47, the store shook. Just once, a deep vibration like thunder that started in the floor and rose through my feet. And then came the scream. It wasn't human. It started human, ragged, panicked, but something twisted it halfway through. It became something feral, unnatural. I covered my ears. Then it stopped, and silence returned. I didn't sleep that morning. The next night, a new rule appeared. Marla handed it to me without a word, a fresh laminated card. There were now 9 rules. Rule 9. If you hear something behind the wall in the stockroom, do not acknowledge it. Do not speak to it. Do not touch the wall. It can hear your thoughts now. No explanation. Just the new rule. The wall hadn't stopped breathing, and I knew it wouldn't. That night, as I was clocking out, Craig handed me a folded note. No envelope, just a torn piece of receipt paper. Don't trust Melanie either. I started keeping a notebook. I didn't write down the rules. They were already carved into my brain. Instead, I wrote everything else. The whispers, the dreams, the inconsistencies, even the silences. I wrote so I could remember what was real, because Kroger was making it harder to tell, especially after the aisle appeared. It was the start of my 10th night. Everything seemed normal, at least by our cursed standards. The lights buzzed a little too softly, the air smelled faintly of rotting apples near the produce, and Craig was at his usual post with that empty look on his face. Melanie gave me a nod, avoiding eye contact. Jorge still hadn't come back, and Marla wouldn't speak unless it was absolutely necessary. I was pushing a cart of laundry detergent toward the back corner of the store when I saw it. Aisle 13. It was between the cereal and pet food, wedged in like it had always been there, though I was sure it hadn't. The shelves were tall and deep, casting shadows too long for the ceiling lights above. There was no sign above it, just a blank green square where the aisle name should be. But I counted. There were now 13 aisles. There had only ever been 12. I stood at the mouth of it for a long time, cart in hand, heart ticking like a countdown clock. I didn't want to enter. I didn't want to see what was inside. But I couldn't leave either. Not until I knew. I took a step in. The temperature dropped instantly, not the same kind of cold as the freezer aisle. This cold was wet, lingering, like the walls had been soaked in swamp water. The shelves weren't stocked like the others. They held things. Products that didn't belong in a Kroger. Unlabeled cans with no branding, no expiration dates. Jars filled with black sludge. Meat wrapped in newspaper. Small glass vials filled with teeth. Some of the items pulsed when I passed. Others made a soft clicking sound, like beetles crawling behind glass. I kept moving. The aisle stretched deeper than it should have. Too long for the building's layout. It curved slightly to the left, then again. After maybe 100 feet, I turned around. The entrance was gone. Behind me was just more aisle. I panicked, started walking faster, then running. I knocked something off a shelf. It hit the floor and let out a muffled moan. I didn't look down. Eventually, the aisle narrowed. The shelves crept closer together until I had to turn sideways to pass. They loomed over me, breathing. I swear they were breathing. Then at the very end, I saw a door. It wasn't like any door in the store. It was made of rotted wood, bound in thick black iron. Symbols had been carved into it, none I recognized. One of them looked like an eye. Another looked like it was still bleeding. I didn't touch it. Instead, I whispered, "I'm not supposed to be here," and turned back around. The aisle was gone. I stood in the pet food section, holding the same cart, but everything was back the way it should have been. Except no one else was around. The store was dead silent. My watch said 2:14 a.m. Then I heard it. Not a sound exactly. It was absence. No fans, no fridges, no hum of lights. Just thick, pressing silence, like someone had draped the world in a heavy black blanket. Then the store spoke. It wasn't over the intercom. It wasn't in my head. It came from everywhere, like the walls and floor and ceiling had decided to whisper. You saw what you weren't meant to. I froze. The lights dimmed. You walked where we didn't invite you. The glass on the fridges began to frost. You owe us. And then everything snapped back. Music returned. Lights normalized. Marla was mopping near the floral section as if she'd never stopped. Craig was chewing his gum. Melanie was reorganizing bags of chips. But something in the store had changed. And it wasn't done with me. I walked to the break room, pretending everything was fine. Sat down, took out my notebook. Inside, someone had written a new line I hadn't added. It was in red ink. I never used red ink. There is no aisle 13. If you see it again, burn it. That night, when I got home, I found a grocery bag on my porch, Kroger brand. Inside, a can with no label and a note taped to it. You brought something back. I threw the can into the garbage. Later, I found it in my fridge. I didn't put it there, and I live alone. The next night, another rule appeared on the break room board. Rule 10 this time. Rule 10. If you see an aisle between cereal and pet food that wasn't there yesterday, do not enter. If you do enter, you must leave a gift behind. If you take something, it will follow you. I didn't take anything, but the store didn't believe me, because every time I closed my eyes, I saw the bleeding door. And behind it, something was knocking. I started taping black paper over my mirrors at home. It wasn't paranoia. Not anymore. It was prevention, protection. Because every time I looked, I didn't just see myself. I saw something just behind me. Sometimes it stood still. Other times it twitched in place, its mouth open in a smile that didn't match mine. It started the morning after the aisle 13 incident. I came home from work, washed up, looked into the bathroom mirror, and blinked. But my reflection didn't. I held perfectly still. So did it. But there was a tension in the glass, a wrongness. Then its smile stretched just a little wider, while mine stayed flat. I turned away fast and refused to look again. That afternoon, I blacked out every reflective surface in the apartment. Mirrors, the TV screen, the microwave, even the chrome on the shower head. But deep down, I knew it wasn't enough. Kroger wasn't just a store. It was a living system, a trap, a thing pretending to be something else. And now it was reaching out, following me home, burrowing into the places that used to be safe. That night, I didn't want to go back. But the silence in my apartment was worse than anything I'd hear on the sales floor. So I clocked in. Melanie didn't look at me when I walked in. She was paler than usual, eyes ringed with purple. She leaned on a mop that hadn't moved in 10 minutes. I saw the break room mirror twitch, she whispered when I passed. I stopped. She didn't meet my eyes. It watches us now, she said, even when the lights are off. Then she walked away, dragging the mop behind her like a dead limb. At 12:03 a.m., I found a new sign on the employee whiteboard. Written in thick black marker, larger than the printed rules, was a single sentence: "Do not clean the bathroom mirror after midnight." I had never cleaned the bathroom. That wasn't my job. But now it felt like the rule was meant for me. A warning, a trap. The store lights dimmed again around 12:30. They did that sometimes, like the building was taking a breath. Everything would hold still for 30 seconds, no music, no hum, no footsteps, like the air itself paused. That night, something broke the silence. A single knock echoed from the employee bathroom door. I was in the frozen food aisle. No one else was near the back. Marla had gone home early. Craig was at the front. Melanie was restocking tampons near Health and Beauty. That knock should have been impossible, but I heard it, just once. Then again, 2 quick knocks. Then 3, like a code, like a rhythm someone remembered from long ago. I moved slowly toward the back hallway, past the stockroom, toward the employee restrooms. As I got closer, I noticed something strange. The overhead lights were brighter near the door. Too bright, like they weren't just lit, they were burning. The door to the bathroom was ajar, and I could see the mirror inside. Not directly, but I saw just enough through the angle of the cracked door to know something was standing in front of it. Someone wearing my uniform. I didn't enter. I couldn't. But I stood there watching. The figure tilted its head, slowly, deliberately. And then, without a sound, it reached forward and wiped something from the mirror's surface. A handprint. Not its own. That's when I noticed a whisper, low and rhythmic. Not a voice, exactly. More like breath shaping itself into a language just beneath understanding. The figure leaned closer to the mirror, then stopped. It turned slightly, just its head, looking at me through the crack in the door. I bolted. Didn't stop until I reached the front. Craig didn't ask where I'd been. He never did. But this time, when I looked at him, I saw a smear of blood on his collar. I pointed it out. He looked down at it, then shrugged. "It's not mine," he said flatly. Then he walked into the office and shut the door behind him. At 1:44 a.m., the lights flickered again. The intercom crackled, and a voice not the usual one spoke. This one was deeper. Male, not human. Employee assistance needed in the mirror aisle. There's no mirror aisle. There never was. But I knew where it meant. I waited. Watched the cameras in the office monitor, one of the few places I could still feel safe. I saw the hallway. The bathroom door fully open now. No movement inside. But every few seconds, the camera glitched, and every time it did, the figure inside the bathroom mirror was closer to the edge of the glass, like it was trying to leave. I shut off the monitor. Before my shift ended, Craig handed me a new slip. Another rule. Rule 11. Never let your reflection touch the glass. If it does, it can switch places with you, and no one will notice you're gone. The next morning, I woke up to find a note stuck to my bedroom window, written in smudged black ink. Why won't you look at me? I didn't open the blinds that day. I didn't touch my mirrors, but I could still feel it watching, waiting, scratching at the other side. I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this. I don't mean working the night shift. I mean existing between the teeth of whatever Kroger has become, or maybe always was. A store with fluorescent lights and smiling logos by day, a trap with breathing walls and mirror things by night. I was halfway through my 12th shift when the final change happened. It started small. There were no customers again, completely empty store from the moment I clocked in. That wasn't rare anymore, but this time it felt intentional. Like even the normal things had been told to stay away. Melanie never showed up. Craig stood by the automatic doors, but they weren't opening or closing. He wasn't chewing gum. He wasn't moving at all, just standing there, head tilted back slightly, as if waiting for a signal from somewhere above the ceiling. At 11 p.m. sharp, every aisle light shut off, not all at once, one by one in sequence, starting from aisle 1 and ending at the freezers. With each blackout, a hum stopped. With each hum, a new silence was born. And then the humming started again, not from the lights, from the walls. A low, throaty tone, vibrating like a chant through the metal shelving. It wasn't mechanical. It was organic, alive, and it was coming from deep inside the store. I stepped behind the customer service desk, the only place with solid walls and no mirrors. I wanted to wait the night out there, but the intercom crackled. Again, and the voice wasn't one I'd heard before. Not the cheerful female voice, not the male whisper from the mirror aisle. This was something else, hollow, dragged up from under the foundation. You have broken the circle. My chest locked tight. You brought something back and left no offering. The silence after that message wasn't empty. It was expectant. Then I saw Craig move. First just his hand twitching, then his neck, snapping to the side like something had rewired it too fast. His legs jerked like puppet strings had been pulled from above. He turned and looked straight at me, and for the first time, he smiled. I ran, down aisles that flickered and moaned, through freezers that bled dark liquid from the edges. The cereal boxes watched me as I passed. Some of their mascots had changed expressions. The tiger wasn't grinning anymore. He looked hungry. Back hallway, past the bathrooms, toward the locked room near the loading dock, one we were told never to open. There was a key in my pocket. I don't know when I put it there or who gave it to me, but I used it. The door opened with a groan like a dying animal, and behind it was a staircase, a stone one, descending into the earth, spiraling, the walls slick with black mold. It smelled like rotted meat and spoiled milk and something even older, something buried. I should have turned back, but I didn't. I couldn't. The stairs went down too long. Time became soft, bending around each curve. I forgot how long I'd been walking. My feet bled. The lights flickered. No bulbs down there, just some kind of greenish glow leaking from the walls themselves. At the bottom was a chamber, circular, carved with symbols I now recognized, some from the aisle 13 door, others from my mirror dreams. And in the center something stood. It looked like me, but taller, hollow. Its face a stretched version of mine, its skin pale and veined like wax paper. It tilted its head and raised one hand. I did not move, but my own hand raised in response. It was inside me, or I was inside it. And then it spoke, not aloud, inside my thoughts. We were never meant to be seen, it said, but you saw. I tried to scream, but my mouth didn't work. My body wasn't listening anymore. We watched you long enough. You followed the rules. You almost passed the test. Behind it, another figure stepped from the darkness, then another and another, all of them versions of me, all of them slightly wrong, one missing eyes, one covered in mirror glass, one holding a shopping bag soaked in blood. You can leave, the original one said, but you must give up something in return. I understood what it meant. Either stay or trade places. and something would walk out in my skin. I whispered, "What's the last rule?" It smiled with all my teeth and said, "The final rule is never written, it's lived, and once you learn it, you never leave." I woke up in the break room, or maybe it did. I'm not sure anymore. I'm writing this on the back of a price tag in red pen I found in the freezer. If you find it, if you're reading this, don't come looking. Don't apply. Don't work the night shift at the Kroger in East Texas. Because the rules aren't just rules, they're warnings. And I think I finally know what happens if you break the last one. Because when I looked in the mirror just now, I blinked, but the reflection didn't.